Right. Hey guys, it's Optimum Insight here. So today I wanted to talk about the Pomodoro technique because I think it's actually one of the most effective time management methods I've ever used. And so I wanted to share with you what it's about and potentially how you could use it in your own work. So the first thing I'll mention is the history of the Pomodoro technique. So firstly, the Pomodoro technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s. Why was it named the Pomodoro technique? Well, it's because he had a tomato-shaped timer, and I think it's in Italian maybe that I think it's in Italian that tomato means is said as Pomodoro. So I think that's how it came about. As for why you potentially should use the Pomodoro technique, um, it's pretty much because when you're doing work, you may find it hard to maintain concentration for long periods of time. Even if I've had issues with studying in the past where I just feel tired, I may not know when to take breaks, I may take too many breaks, and so it's just a great way to have a clear distinction between when you should be productive and when you should be relaxing. So, what is the Pomodoro technique? Well, the Pomodoro technique is basically a technique that utilizes a timer, and through this timer, you're able to break your work down into clear intervals. The work period is traditionally 25 minutes in length, and then you get 5-minute breaks, so it forms a 30-minute Pomodoro in total. And so, again, that might not sound very hard, but it gets very challenging, say after you've done around four, and four is typically referred to as a set, and it's usually thought that after around four, your concentration levels aren't as high, and so it's recommended that you take a longer break of half an hour. So then, in total, if you include the four pomodoros forming a set and the half an hour break, that will be around 2.5 hours for four pomodoros, and and you may think that it potentially sounds pretty rigid, but it's actually quite flexible. You don't necessarily have to follow that exact those exact minutes. You can adjust it to potentially how well you think you can focus and how many pomodoros you think you can do in a set. Okay, so how would you potentially go about utilizing this technique? So, I mean, it sounds pretty simple, but I think what's really important is let me go through some steps. So first, I think you need to decide on a task. Then you would set the timer. Then when the timer rings, you take a short break, and then you take a longer break after you've done four pomodoros. But I think the key thing that I would really put a lot of focus on would be the fact that you need to plan your tasks out beforehand, because I think during my first year in university, I was really unproductive in my first term. But then during my second term, when one of my friends just happened to mention to me about the Pomodoro technique, I actually utilized it. And I think the key to me being successful in utilizing and actually being able to get a lot more work done in the second term was because the night before I used to write an exact schedule in 30-minute time slots, and so I simply had to follow this schedule. So it was very effective as a result, and as a result, I actually managed to get all my work done, and I had spare time to do extra revision. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you were able to do a solid 8 to 10 hours a day of productive studying like I was able to do in my second term. So yeah, I've given you a pretty clear example of how a Pomodoro technique has helped me. But don't just listen to me. There's actually a lot of benefits with the Pomodoro technique that will actually lead to you having a much more productive routine overall. And so it's something I definitely recommend. So, for instance, I know that because of the regular breaks you end up taking through the Pomodoro technique, it actually aids you with assimilation. And so assimilation is just your process of actually fully understanding the information and ideas that you're potentially taking in. The other thing I'd say is that through Pomodoros, you actually create a sense of motivation for yourself because they're accountable and you can actually record how many Pomodoros you've done. So it's a good way of tallying how productive you've been, say, over the course of a week. Maybe you can identify days where you weren't as productive and how you could potentially improve upon this. So it's a good way of tracking your performance and seeing where you can improve and how much and where your time went basically during the day and to what tasks it was focused on. Okay, so finally, I'll just give you one last tip. What I did with Pomodoro technique is if you're a beginner, you just start with a couple of Pomodoros and every day you build up your tolerance. And ideally, you want to reach the point where you're doing at least 10 Pomodoros a day. Because, in my opinion, that's a solid 5 hours of productive work. And if you're actually to make that time productive rather than just simply being busy, because there's a difference between being busy and being productive, then you've had a very good day in my opinion. So one thing that I did is I prefer to do 6 pomodoros in a row in the morning because I like to put most of my heavy workload out, get most of my work done in the one bit in the morning, and then I take a half an hour break for like food, and then I would decrease the intensity of those sets of pomodoros as the day went on. And so this basically allowed me to decrease and lower the intensity of my study periods. And what this basically meant is that if I was getting tired, because I knew that, okay, my next set of Pomodoros is going to be shorter than the last set, it basically motivated me to push on and carry through because I knew that each time I did a even just one Pomodoro, it would be easier and easier, and it actually meant that I was more likely to complete them. So it's definitely something I'd recommend you doing, starting with say 6 Pomodoros, half an hour break, 4 Pomodoros, half an hour break, 2 Pomodoros. But of course you can vary it depending on say how productive you are and also what you can handle, and then also how much work you have. And if you were just wondering, the most Pomodoros I've actually ever done in a day was during one of my exam periods, and that was around 20. Doing much more than that and actually being productive is very difficult. You can say you've done more than that, but in my opinion, actually being productive actually being productive and doing more than 20 pomodoros is actually like very difficult to do. So I mean, comment below if you after watching this video you actually have beaten that. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed that video, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to my channel, so you can continue to receive more videos from me on how you could potentially optimize different areas of your life.